In the Tim Cook era, we no longer have that Steve Jobs thing of every 3 years, there's another world-changing platform. That is demonstrably true. Tim Cook has tripled the revenue, the profit, and the headcount, all the while adding a layer of civic responsibility, sustainability, accessibility. So the question is Tim Cook incapable of doing another major platform, or has that era just kind of passed?
Good morning, everybody. It's Guy Kawasaki. This is the Remarkable People podcast. There's no way for you to know this, but this is our fourth attempt at trying to do this interview. And you would think that two old tech guys like David and Guy would be able to do a podcast recording, but it has not been working very smoothly. So, there goes our credibility, but let me introduce today's remarkable guest. His name is David Pogue, and we go back a very long way. Macworld magazine, but David is like won, 6 or 7 Emmys, and he's best-selling author. He's iJustine and Marques Brownlee before iJustine and Marques Brownlee were even born. He worked for the New York Times. He founded Yahoo Tech. He now works for CBS News Sunday Morning. He hosted 20 episodes of Nova. Basically, he is the man in tech journalism. And now I learned something, that he was trained as a Broadway conductor. Yeah.
10 years. Yeah, I was a pit musician, man.
Wow. So, yeah, maybe that has something to do with his wonderfulness as a tech journalist.
Show off. You can say it. Show off. Yeah.
Yeah. And the momentous occasion which brings us together is the publication of this book. And let me tell you something. As a person who was inside the washing machine when the washing machine was running, I learned a shitload of stuff about the company that I was at, and I had no idea. This is a really thick book. This is like, this is War and Peace of Apple, which War and Peace of Apple is a good description of what happened at Apple. So, David, first, I want to go on the record. When you first contacted me about writing this book, I had the chutzpah and the balls to suggest that I be your co-author and we write this book together. And you very wisely and very diplomatically told me, Guy, don't even fucking think about it. You're not up to my speed. And I have to say, David, now that I read this book, I said, you made the absolute right decision. I would not have added a damn thing to this book. And the book is better without me. So, that's a rare moment of humility on my part. You made the absolute right decision. So,
well, you did give me an absolutely phenomenal interview, and I hope 600 pages is a lot, but I hope you at least read your sections, because I used some. You were so funny in that interview, and I used some great quotes.
Well, the first thing I did when I got the galleys was I went to look for the index, so I could only read about me, but there is no index for galleys. So.
Oh, that's right. Oh, okay. Well, we've got the hardbound copies now. I'll have to ship you one.
The cover should say Apple, the first 50 years, David Pogue without Guy Kawasaki. That would have... Okay, so first of all, I got to bring up some of your checkered past. I just learned that you're in the Epstein files, so I'd like you to explain that for us first.
I'm in the Epstein files 4 times. My wife said, "Are you in the Epstein files?" And there's a public website where you can search it, and I popped up 4 times. All 4 are people forwarding to Jeffrey Epstein my articles, like, "Hey, J.E., thought you should look into this new Sony camera." So there's nothing, never met the man. I'm not sure I'd even heard of the guy, but apparently he knew who I was because people kept sending him my articles.
Wow. If we had known that earlier, we would have never scheduled you on this interview.
Exactly.
All right, so I got to get a little dark right now. So, how close did you come to boarding an OceanGate submarine and taking that tour?
I was on it. Yeah.
In the water.
We're in the water. Right. CBS Sunday Morning did a story about OceanGate and that guy, Stockton Rush. And that was to involve going down to the Titanic on his thing. And so we got up at 4 a.m. and we got in and we got bolted shut from the outside. And we only got down 40 feet when they had some kind of really stupid malfunction. I can tell you how stupid it was, but I was really pissed because it was a 12-day commitment. And so they canceled the dive and brought us back to the surface. And that was it for our time on the OceanGate. I was very annoyed until I learned that 3 dives later, that thing imploded and killed everybody. So it was like a Russian roulette moment. I mean, everyone's always like, well, didn't you know it was a janky operation? And the answer is no. I mean, I don't know if it was theater or what, but that they were so apparently safety obsessed. There were checklists and countdowns and mandatory countdown stops. And like they had this rule of 3, that if 3 even little things were amiss, they would cancel the dive. Like the batteries in the flashlight aren't fully charged, or, the label on the gauge is peeling off, whatever. So what happened with us was we were 40 feet down and the sub is mounted to a big horizontal floating sinkable platform. So you sink to 40 feet and then scuba divers come and unbolt the sub and off you go. They do that so that the launch happens underwater where it's calm. And while they were unbolting us, one of these 4 little black buoys on the corner of the platform came untied and popped up. Like I said to the guy, who cares? Like the job of the platform is over. No one gives a crap about this stupid buoy. But it was like this strike 3 thing. So that was the end of my journey.
Wow. Well, I mean, this book could have been Apple the First 50 Years by Guy Kawasaki without David Pogue. I mean, but okay, so I have to tell you that I'm surprised by your reaction, because in my mind, it was all about this kind of billionaire bro arrogance that we got so much money, we can send everybody up into space for a few minutes. We can send people to the Titanic, because we're billionaires and, we can do anything we want. But that's not exactly the impression I just got from you. They were very careful.
I mean, I know that the narrative is now that Stockton Rush was a crook and a con man and a killer, and he didn't care. Definitely. I mean, I did 4 interviews with him during those 12 days, and he knew the science, he knew the materials. He had studied all the 4 previous submersibles that had gone to the Titanic, and he had on staff P.H. Nargeolet, the most experienced Titanic diver in the world. He'd been to the Titanic 27 times, and he supervised the building of this submersible. And I'm like, you have no qualms about its being made of carbon fiber? He's like, absolutely not. I wouldn't get in it if I would. So what we saw was much more buttoned down and safety conscious than what we now think of from the documentaries and so on, where Stockton was ignoring whistleblowers and all that.
Wow. I mean, that is 180 degrees, from what most people's impression is of what happened there. Wow. But David, I got to ask you a question. Like what kind of person would name his company with the word gate at the end? I mean, like there's Watergate, there's, all the gates are considered bad, right? Why would you name your company with gate at the end?
Maybe he was thinking that nobody could ever call it a scandal because it would have to be OceanGate Gate, and that was too silly.
I got. I mean, I would. That's almost as dumb as naming an AI company Perplexity. But anyway, that's a different discussion. So now I really want to know. How does one win an Emmy? Because I've never won an Emmy. I don't know how to win an Emmy. How does this happen?
Well, there are these academies, television arts and science academies. There's one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast, and they invite Emmys are for television, right? So television production companies and networks can submit stories for consideration in the various categories. There's news, there's sports, there's children. I mean, it's a big honor, but I will also say it's also a big business because the trophy costs me $400. Like, you buy those trophies, right? And there are many categories. There's documentary, there's sports, and multiple things within each of these categories. Best one-off special, best series, best limited series, best supporting actor, best main actor, best main actress, best supporting actor, and so on, and times two, because there's an East Coast Academy and a West Coast Academy, and they all give out duplicate trophies. So I, for example, for 14 years, I've been the host of the technical Emmys. And at the Tech Emmys, we give out awards to like the Steadicam and the first 4K camera and things like that. But meanwhile, I know in the back of my head that a similar event is simultaneously going on the West Coast with another host, with another set of winners. So it's a business.
Wait, there's East Coast, West Coast for the exact same award. So you could win an Emmy for the best USB-C cable East Coast, USB-C cable West Coast. There's two winners.
You could.
Wow.
That's absolutely happened.
And does winning an Emmy change your life? I mean, all of a sudden you don't have to make reservations anywhere on the East Coast, and like Tavern on the Green is begging you to come eat there. Trump Tower gives you free rooms. I mean, what does it mean to win?
Suddenly podcast hosts are interested in you.
Everybody wants to co-author a book with you, and
I mean, I put them on I'm a former musician, so we put them on the piano, and I will say there's an instantaneous credibility thing that happens when somebody enters the house. They treat you better. The movers are more careful, things like that.
So David, how many do you have?
7.
If I give you $400, will you give me one, and then I can say I have an Emmy, right? I mean,
what kind of public figure idiot thinks that taking a trophy from a genuine winner, Nobel Prize, counts as having earned it?
Oh, you mean somebody did that before me? Yeah. Oh,
I don't know what you're talking about.
I thought I was the most clever person to come up with that. Well, I mean, I'd rather give you $400 and get an Emmy than have to invade a country. But that's a different discussion. Okay, so now we covered the Emmy. I'm going down this checklist of my fantasy questions for David Pogue here. Okay, so you've done a lot of interviews with a lot of famous people. I want to know who the nicest person ever was that you interviewed.
Yeah, I can tell you that. So when I was a teenager, I grew up. My favorite band was Electric Light Orchestra, ELO. It was this, Yellow, yeah. So, Mr. Blue Sky and all that. And it was run by a guy named Jeff Lynne. He wrote all the songs. He was the singer. And then the band broke up. And so for 30 years, there was no ELO. And then about 3 years ago, the guy's like 70 now. And he put the band back together and was going to do a U.S. tour of ELO. And they were coming to Madison Square Garden. I told my wife, oh my God, we have to go. We have to go. This is my inner child healed, And she said, well, dude, you work for a national news show. why don't you propose doing a story about him? And then instead of just seeing them from the seats, you get to meet him. And if you can believe it, my bosses said yes. And I went and I got to spend the day with Jeff Lynne at his house in California. And, it's always risky meeting your heroes, as I knew from the day I met you. And so
I was just about to say the same thing about you, but okay.
I mean, your intro was wrong about one thing. In 1983, 84, when you were changing the world at Apple, I was in college. And all I knew of you was reading about you. And your evangelist newsletter would come out during the darker times. And man, I dropped everything to read that email to give myself hope, to tell me that I wasn't deluded being an Apple fan. So we were not friends in 1983. You were a hero and I was your reader in 1984. So let's make that clear.
You seem a lot older than you are. Okay. But
anyway, so I got to meet Jeff Lynne of ELO.
Okay.
And didn't know if he would be a jerk or what, but he was so nice and so funny and so vulnerable. It was unbelievable.
Oh, that's great to hear. Okay, so now I got to ask you the flip side, which is, which of these people gave you the most bullshit? Which was the most difficult?
I interviewed Elon Musk in June.
Yeah. And? This is for CBS, right?
Yes, that's right. And it was a terrifying interview for a bunch of reasons. One is that every damn person had their own agenda and hopes for this interview, right? Like all these liberal people in Westchester County where I live were all like, you go there and you cut his balls off on camera, and then, CBS was being sued by the Trump administration for the 60 Minutes thing. And they're like, you have to be clear. You have to be patient. You can't edit him, And meanwhile, Musk's people obviously wanted a glowing thing about SpaceX. So everybody had their own agenda. And I had been told by his people that any subject was open. So I could ask him about politics. I could ask him about Tesla, anything. So he came onto the set to meet me. And, they take a couple minutes to adjust your mics and the lighting. And so during that time, I generally try to disarm my interview subject by making some small jokes or chit chat. He was wearing a T-shirt that said, Occupy Mars. And this interview was taking place at SpaceX on the factory floor where they're building the rockets. And so I'm like, oh, I love that T-shirt. Can I get that in the gift shop? And he just turned his eyes toward me, dead and cold like a shark. He had come into this interview angry. And I don't know why. I mean, he had no clue what I had in mind to ask him. Like, somebody must have told him, like, this is likely to be a hostile interview. I don't know. And then I started asking him, I asked him a couple space questions. And then I asked him, you came over to the United States on this program that lets foreign students, he was from South Africa, study in American universities. And now your boss is trying to shut down that program. How does that make you feel? And he's like, no, we're not talking about that. We're just talking about space today. And I'm like, but your people told me anything goes. And he's like, no. And so it just made my blood ran cold because I had prepared for a whole thing and I had one vision of how this would go. And then I kid you not, unasked, I didn't bring up Trump, unasked, he starts going, but I got to tell you something. This big, beautiful bill is a disaster. I don't like it. It's going to erase everything I've tried to do with Doge in like 3 months. And he said, I think a bill can be big or it can be beautiful, but it can't be both. So immediately CBS takes that line and releases it to the internet as a promo for the Sunday where this is going to air. And it goes super viral, top left corner of the New York Times, Musk turns on Trump, this whole thing. Trump is asked about it in the White House. We saw a clip from a CBS interview. And the next day, Elon Musk is out of the White House. I've heard a couple of people say that he intended to use this interview as a way to get himself out. because like he volunteered that stuff. I had not asked him.
Wow. Well, I told you to take some ketamine for him when you did that interview. What were you thinking, David? I mean, oh my God. Oh. And have you had any interaction with him afterwards?
No, nope. It was suggested that I contact them after he announced that he was leaving the White House. It was suggested that I seek a follow-up comment, which I did, and there was no response. So yeah, I think that bridge is burned.
But meanwhile, do you still drive a Model 3?
I do. I love those cars. I love those cars. Have you tried the self-driving recently?
I know that you did it, you loved it, but I won't even. I mean, if Lyft shows up and it's a Tesla, I'll get in, but I will not voluntarily get in a Tesla or do anything with a Tesla. Just
because of the association. Yeah. I know. We do have the sticker on the car. We bought this before Elon went crazy.
Wait,
yeah.
So are you telling me that you would absolutely trust your life to the FSD of Tesla right now?
I do every day. I have not driven manually in like 3 months. It is extraordinary. Like you're in your garage, right? You put in the address, you hit start self-driving. At this point, you can just cross your arms. The garage door opens, the car backs out, does a 3-point turn to get out the driveway, puts on the signal, turns onto the road, gets to the highway, merges onto the ramp beautifully. If there's somebody slow in front of you, it puts on the turn signal and passes him and then gets back into the non-passing lane. It knows what exit to take. And when you get to the destination, the mall or the store, it goes up and down the rows of the parking lot looking for the closest space and then parks itself all by itself. It is so obviously safer and better than a person, like way better. I keep having these incidents. Like I was showing my dad the self-driving in Manhattan. He's 97. It was the night before Thanksgiving. It was raining. It was dark. It was horrible, chaotic traffic. And we're at a red light. And my dad says, "But how is it going to know when to go?" And I'm like, "Dad, it has cameras all around. It can see the light." And at that moment, the light turned green and the car didn't move. And I was all ready to come up with some, compensatory excuse when this crazy, grungy, screaming high guy runs from behind, from the back left of the car, diagonally across the front fender, screaming in the rain. And the car had seen it from behind and projected the trajectory of this guy. And if it hadn't, I would have plowed him over. There's no question. The car saw him before I did.
Oh, Madison, I'm in a big moral dilemma. I mean, should we edit out that whole section where David Pogue is testifying to how great Tesla is? Oh, man. Of course, you got to put this into context. This is the same guy who got in OceanGate and was ready to go. So, okay, so, you're one of the few people in the world who have, interactions with Steve Jobs and Elon Musk. Which of these two people do you think has altered the universe more, Elon or Steve?
Wow. Probably, yeah, I think it's impossible to answer because, like, both of them hugely.
Don't be chicken shit, David. I need an answer.
I guess Steve. Because, I mean, in 1976, when Apple was founded, no one had ever seen a computer, like in person, right? Corporations and governments had computers. They did not have keyboards. They did not have screens. You operated them with flippy switches on the front, and they gave you your answers with punch cards or lights that light up. And it was Woz who first thought of attaching a TV screen and keyboard. And then it was Jobs who said, we should market this and bring this to the masses. So those two guys with the Apple one, well, especially the Apple II, brought computers into homes. like to make it something that everybody could own, which was something no one thought coming. And that led to everything else. And that led to the phone, which led to social media, which led to Airbnb, Tinder, Grubhub, all the social media sites, which has changed the world politically, culturally, environmentally, all because of, that central mission of putting advanced technology into the hands of everybody.
All righty. So we might as well tackle the Apple question now. I mean, after all, that's why you're here, right? I mean, how much more can I endorse your book without talking about your book, But anyway, so now, as I was reading your book, I said to myself over and over, I didn't know that was true. Like the first time was, I didn't know that Apple was the fourth thing that they did together. Can you just give us the full story? Because I didn't know the full story.
Yeah, no, Apple didn't start in a garage. That's another myth. I will tell you, so I interviewed 150 people for this book, you among them. That was an unbelievably great interview. And like 40% of these guys, the first thing out of their mouths was, please get it right this time. Because like all these previous books, first of all, they tend to be written by business writers. So they have a sort of executive boardroom focus. I'm a technology dude, so I wanted it to be more about the origin stories of the products and the technologies and stuff like that. So I really, really tried to fix the game of author telephone that's been going on for 50 years, where the first Apple book cited a story that wasn't true, but then the next Apple book author refers to the first book as source material, and the story keeps getting propagated on and on. Like there's the story that everybody tells about the iPod. Jobs wanted it as small as possible, and so they brought him a prototype, and they're like, "Here you go, Steve. This is as small as it's going to get." And he drops it in the aquarium, in the fish tank, and air bubbles come out. And he's like, "See those air bubbles? That means there's still room in there. Make it smaller." I mean, what a wonderful story, right? Absolutely not true. Not a single person remembers or could say that. So yeah, it turns out that this was the fourth business of the two Steves. They had gone into business locally trying to sell the Apple I, of course, which wasn't called the Apple I. It was just Woz's circuit board. That was the first one. The second one was they were hired by a local timeshare company. These are companies who would own a mini computer and let poor non-corporate slobs connect to the online military network remotely by dialing in. They wanted the two Steves to build a little $200 terminal that this guy could sell to clients who wanted to use his mini computer remotely. And then there was the Blue Box. That was a huge one. When Woz was in college, he built this little device that could mimic the touch tones of telephones dialing the Bell phone system and make free phone calls. And once again, as with the Apple I, Jobs was like, "Dude, that's amazing. We should sell this." And so he began marketing this thing to college kids who would make free phone calls and save a lot of money. So Apple was actually the fourth one. And you probably know this guy, but a lot of people don't realize that there was a third founder who was cut in for 10%. This guy, Ron Wayne, that Jobs knew from his work at Atari. And Ron was an entrepreneur. He was a jack of all trades. He was an engineer. He was a draftsman. So he made Apple's first logo. He designed a case for the Apple I. And more to the point, he got Steve Jobs and Woz over the hump of some disagreement stuff. And he said, "Look, let's found you as a company." And on April 1st, 1976, the three of them signed the founding documents. Ron Wayne, if he had held on to his stock, today would have $400 billion. But instead, 12 days later, the two boys, the two Steves, who were, by the way, young, long-haired, grungy. Jobs was barefoot and smelly. He did not use deodorant. He did not do good hygiene. He was a very counterculture kid. They got a loan for $15,000 worth of parts to build these Apple Ones. And Ron Wayne was on the hook for some of that because he was one of the founders. And he had just gone through some really nasty startup entrepreneurial disasters where he was on the hook for loans that he couldn't pay back. And he was like, dude, I'm 40. This is crazy. What am I doing messing with these two 20-year-old hippies with a $15,000 loan? I'm out. So he went back to the Santa Clara registrar's office and took his name off the agreement 12 days later. So they paid him $800. And then Apple's lawyers said, we'll give you another $1,500 if you'll agree that this is really it. So that was it for Ron Wayne. He's never done an interview. I tried to reach him for the book, couldn't find him. Apparently, he wrote a little memoir, which is really sweet. He's like, everybody wants me to say I regret backing out. And honestly, I did what I had to do at the time, and I've never starved, so I'm okay, which is really moving and mature and sweet. And so on March 11, I don't know if that's before or after this is aired, but March 11, I'm launching the book at the Computer History Museum in Mountain View with special guests on stage. We're having John Scully and Chris Espinosa and Avi Tevanian and so on. Woz is going to make a video appearance, we hope. Who emails the museum from nowhere but Ron Wayne?
Wow.
He's like, do you think I could say a few words? And I'm like,
Wow.
hell yeah, no one's ever seen you. So he's going to stand up and I'm going to ask him a couple of questions at this thing. Somebody should make a movie about that.
Wow. Well, by the way, David, thanks for the invite. I mean,
We'll drag a folding chair on stage for you, Guy.
I can tell you something, though. I have very strong feelings about John Scully these days after his Christmas vacation. So, we can get into that later.
Wow, I didn't know about this.
Oh, so on his social media for Christmas, he's posting pictures like, here we are at the White House at the Christmas celebration. Here we are at Mar-a-Lago with the Trumps for Christmas celebration.
Scully?
John Scully. Absolutely. You go. I'll send you pictures. John Scully is now Donald Trump's BFF.
I did not know that.
Yeah, disinvite his ass and I'll take his place.
Because that's so weird. That's so weird because, in the 10 years he was the CEO of Apple, he was sort of independent, but he campaigned for Clinton and was up for Secretary of Commerce under Clinton. Like, what happened?
You see, that's why you should have had me as a co-author. I would have prevented things like this happening. But okay, you can only lead an author to the water. You can't make them drink. What can I say, dude?
I've heard that.
All right, so now I love Woz. Woz has been on this podcast. I think Woz is the purest form of engineering that I have ever met, and he deserves a lot more credit than he gets. But I want you to, with all the stories that Chris Espinosa has told you and all that, give us one Woz story that best captures that character.
I have to say, I am so moved by this man's generosity. He is the opposite of the modern tech bro CEO. He gave away all his Apple money. Like years ago, he founded the San Jose Ballet, a children's museum, the tech museum in Silicon Valley. He funded a music festival. He lost millions of dollars, but he got U2 and Sting and all these great bands to perform. And then he repeated it the next year, even though it was a money loser. It was so much fun. He is just so generous. And I guess, this guy, but when Apple went public, in the single meanest thing Steve Jobs ever did was to give stock options to every executive and every full-time staff member except the guys who had been with Apple from before it was Apple, who helped build the Apple I circuit boards in the garage. The guys who were, they were technically contractors not full-timers when Apple was underway. And that was his argument. You guys aren't full-time, so you get no stock. These were some of his best friends, so it was the most vicious cutout. Like all around them, these guys' buddies were now millionaires and they got nothing. So Woz said, don't worry, I'll give you some of my stock. And he did. He gave about $1 million worth of stock to each of these guys just to make them whole. And Apple's lawyers flipped out. They're like, you can't do that. The paperwork, the 1099, whatever. And he's like, I don't care. I'm giving them money. So they nicknamed this the Woz plan. And he made a bunch of people whole for no reason other than he thought it was the nice thing to do. So, and he's generous of time. He sat down for an interview for this book, another interview for this CBS Sunday Morning story I'm doing. And between these two interviews, he made himself available by email for historical questions and technical questions any time of the day or night. He would answer me within hours. I mean, the man is genuinely a gift, a legend. I mean, I can say that fully well.
Yeah. I think, David, I would also add some data there that if Woz is generous with his time and effort for you, it really means that Janet likes you. Because if Janet doesn't like you, your ass is grass, David, and you would not get the time of day from Woz if Janet doesn't like you.
I agree. She has been she's a very good gatekeeper because everyone wants a piece of Woz, right?
Yeah.
Especially at the 50th anniversary. Like everybody wants a little bit of Woz. And so she guards his time judiciously.
Yeah. As I look back, the way I got on the good side of Janet was I once helped them figure out how to get a visa to Russia. Because getting a visa into Russia was a non-trivial task before, right? I mean, this is before we knew Stephen Miller and stuff. But yeah, it was very hard to get a Russian visa. And I figured out, how the most expeditious way was. And I helped them. And that's why Woz was on my podcast. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah, no, nothing illegal or anything like that. It was just, you got to know the tricks of the trade here. So let us make a stipulation that Steve Jobs was an asshole. Would you say he was a mission-driven asshole or an ego-driven asshole? Because there are different kinds of assholes. I've been in Silicon Valley for 40 years. I'm kind of an expert in assholes, and not in the proctological sense, but the billionaire bro sense. So, what kind of asshole was Steve Jobs?
I mean, I didn't know him in the 80s. You did, and in your interview, you told me, listen, I've been in Silicon Valley a long time. I know my assholes. And I quoted you in the book. And you said the difference is that Jobs was a mission-driven asshole. So that I get my answer from you. And which means like they're very much two different philosophies on his cruelty. And, there are some who say he just had a mean streak and he got off on ripping people apart. But then there are other people who said, no, it was all a means to an end of getting you to rise above your self-imposed limitations and do better work. And many people told me this, and they would give examples. Like I was in this engineering corner and I just couldn't figure it out. So I said, we're not going to be able to get this feature in. And then Jobs ripped me apart. And over the weekend, I went back to it and I found a way. I mean, I kept hearing that. And Jobs said that himself. He said, this is a way to motivate people to brilliance levels that they didn't think they had. So, and also we should say, there are two Steve Jobses, right? There was the young Steve Jobs in his 20s who founded Apple and hired Guy Kawasaki. And then he left for 11 years and did Next and Pixar. And then he came back in 1997, older, wiser. He'd had much more experience managing people, and he was supposedly much more chill upon his return.
Supposed is a very
Yeah.
strong word there.
Was he not?
I don't know because I wasn't there the second time. My sort of my last interaction with Steve, I believe, is when he wanted to offer me the job of running Apple University, and I turned him down. I figured that decision cost me maybe 75 million, but then I quit 2 times before, so I think all in all, by quitting twice and turning Steve Jobs down, probably 350, $400 million. But David, I know you're the big mocker of tech journalism, but for most people, David, 400 million here or 400 million there, it adds up to real money after a while.
That's real money, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Exactly.
But
Guy, what is it worth to have your integrity? You maintained your integrity.
About 395 million. But I have thought about this. Hearing the Ron Wayne story makes me feel a lot better because he lost 400 billion. I only lost 400 million, right? But I got to tell you, if I had stayed at Apple, I would not have tried to start companies. I would not have become a writer. I would not have become a podcaster because Apple cannot tolerate anybody inside of Apple getting more attention than, the CEO or whoever, right? So Mark Rober was at Apple and, he started getting 25 million YouTube subscribers and Apple PR couldn't handle that. Mark Rober had more subscribers than Apple. So anyway, if I had stayed at Apple, I would be just an insufferable asshole, which maybe I am already, but I would be a richer insufferable asshole. But anyway, so now, where do you come down on this argument? I mean, this is a very existential argument that I have not resolved in my mind. So was being an asshole made him be successful, or was he a success so that people tolerated his assholeness? Like, this is, chicken versus egg here. Or what, is there a causative relationship there?
I really, really hate to say this, but I think having zero social skills and being an asshole like him and Elon Musk plays a part in their changing the world. Because life is filled with red tape and naysayers and regulation and the way we've always done it. And, just both of these guys were knives. They just cut through the tradition, the pushback. They just had no patience. They had a vision and they wanted to get there, and they both want to get there soon. And so I got to say, the way they treated people was an element in how much they got done.
Well, but my counter to that, David, is that, so I would say that Elon and Steve are or were assholes, but they also had vision, and they had a lot of stuff. And my greatest fear when people study Elon and Steve is that, they only understand the asshole part. And the asshole part is easy. Anybody can be an asshole, right? You just buy a Porsche, you drive alone in the carpool lane, you park in the handicap slot. That's not hard. The asshole part is easy. It's the visionary part that's hard. And, otherwise everybody would just wear a black mock turtleneck and, they'd all be in prison for selling a magic machine that takes one drop of your blood and, diagnose everything. Anyway, don't get me started on that.
No, you're exactly right. That people take the wrong lesson from the success of these guys, right? It is, what's that phrase about necessary but insufficient? Like yes, you do have to have a vision, and you have to be driven, and you have to be singularly focused, but you can't just be singularly focused. And that's, yeah, exactly. That has been proven not to work over and over.
I studied Latin in high school, and the phrase is propter hoc post hoc, which means just because it's after this doesn't mean it's because of this, right?
Yeah.
So there. You can use that for your next book there. Post hoc, propter hoc. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
That's good, Mr.
Yeah.
Latin.
More value from a co-author. Today's Apple. I am fully cognizant of this kind of retroactive, sort of flattering yourself. Like, when I was back at Apple, we really innovated, or, when I was your age, I was really working hard and blah, blah, blah. So taking that off the table, I have to say that, in my greatest dreams for Apple is they create a product that is to iPhone and Macintosh what Macintosh was to the Apple II, which Macintosh made me forget the Apple II. So what is going to make me forget iPhone and Macintosh? And it's not the goggles that you put on your head. It's not the Apple Watch. Maybe it's Apple glasses, but do you have any insights? I mean, what, David, seriously, when is the last time you were willing to go to midnight to Manhattan to camp out in front of the Apple store so the next morning you could get the first one? It's been years.
The iPhone was it. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I mean, in the Tim Cook era, we no longer have that Steve Jobs thing of every 3 years there's another world-changing platform. That is demonstrably true. I mean, Tim Cook has tripled the revenue, the profit, and the headcount of Apple in his time. So he is spectacularly successful. And by the way, all the while adding a layer of civic responsibility, sustainability, accessibility, charity. Jobs never gave any money to charity. Tim Cook instituted an employee thing where they'll match any money that any employee gives. They'll make donations of $25 an hour to your favorite charity based on how many hours you volunteer for anybody. Things like that don't even get a lot of play. So the question is Tim Cook incapable of doing another major platform, or has that era just kind of passed? Right? There was the Vision Pro, there was the car. Not many people talk about the Titan project, the Apple car, beautiful, self-driving, most advanced electric car in the world. They spent 10 years on it, $10 billion, 1,200 engineers, and ultimately canceled it because they weren't quite getting there. And meanwhile, margins on cars are not good. The world had changed. So one argument is Tim Cook is just not a hardware product visionary like Jobs would. So that era of Apple is over. The other way to look at it is, Steve Jobs came along at an incredible time, a time of miniaturization and memory getting cheaper and material science advances that nobody since that time, even Steve Jobs, could have kept it up. I mean, we haven't seen any iPhone level inventions from any company since he died. So there's that argument that we all knew Jobs during the key years of invention and innovation, and all the low-hanging fruit was plucked. And Tim Cook and nobody can repeat it.
Well, but David, I could make the case that of all companies in the world, the company that can most integrate artificial intelligence is Apple. Because Apple owns your phone, Apple owns your computer, Apple owns your glasses, Apple owns your watch. So, I mean, you don't have to add Gemini, you don't have to add OpenAI, you don't have to add everything is built in. But freaking Siri, I mean, you cannot tell Siri to tell you the time and get it right. I do not understand that. So, why? And now, I don't know if it's to their credit or to their, fault that they're going to use Gemini, but like, why can't they be the, world-shattering, patent-pending, curve-jumping, revolutionary integration of AI into all their systems?
Yeah, I know. They kind of blew it. I mean, I love what they showed in 2004 at the developers conference, where you say to Siri, what time do I need to pick up my mom? And behind the scenes, it goes through your email to learn that your mother's coming to visit. Then it checks your messages to find out what the flight number is. Then it goes to flightaware.com and learns if the flight is late. Then it goes to Google Maps and learns what the traffic is like. And in a blink of an eye, it says, you need to leave at 1:20. I mean, that was so cool. And here we are speaking a year and a half later, and there's still no sign of that feature. But that would be amazing. That would be a leap ahead of OpenAI. That can't do that.
I don't, David. I am obviously I use all Macintosh and iPhone products, and I'm on my iPhone and I'm texting, and I want to send a message, to my wife. What time should I be home for dinner? And when I input for, it comes out FIR, FIR. And, with a modicum of intelligence, you would think that Apple knows that I'm not into trees. I never, ever text about fir or oak or, eucalyptus. So, AI can write entire books based on the statistics of the probability of the following syllable. But Apple Messages thinks that when I type in for, I'm typing in fur because somehow I'm going to ask my wife, what kind of tree are we going to have for dinner? I do not understand that. Anyway, I digress. So now let us talk about this. I have never met Tim Cook. It's not clear to me Tim Cook even knows who the hell I am or cares. But what I do not understand, David, and this is one of the greatest mysteries in my life, is of all people, of all companies, why is Apple doing this thing with the Trump administration? Now, I realize you work for CBS News, so we can just end it right here because I don't want Barry Weiss's head to explode. But I do not understand. Okay, so you give $1 million to the inauguration. All right, so you had to pay your dues. You appear on the stage. Okay, but all of this, like giving him a trophy and donating to the East Wing destruction, and then on the day that Alex Preddy is killed, you're taking selfies at the Melania unveiling. I do not understand this. So, David, please explain this to me. I mean, the slogan or the sort of the phrase for Apple was, we're about to make the world a better place, and now it seems like we're about to avoid tariffs. That's the mantra of Apple. We avoid tariffs.
I mean, I think very clearly that, they won't explain Tim Cook's behavior, but I think it was very clearly that. It was very clearly, along with the universities and the law firms and the news networks and all these other people who are afraid, they know that with some very simple appeals to the president's ego, they can avoid business disaster. I mean, a $3,500 iPhone, which is what it would cost if it were made in the United States, would be a disaster. That wouldn't serve anyone, right? Not Apple, not the shareholders, not the customers. So, my guess is that they were shrewd enough to say, give the guy a trophy and he'll leave us alone. And it worked. Depending on your politics, this was just a shameless, disgusting, spineless suck-up.
That's
or an incredibly shrewd, one-time, low-cost, strategic move that worked.
And pray tell, where are you on this argument?
Oh my God. If I were in that position, I would just implode. I don't know. It's just, it was a no-win, right? If I were the university or the law firm, I think they would have survived without capitulating the way they did. The tech companies, the hardware companies like Apple, I think we're in a harder spot because a $3,500 iPhone, that's doomsday.
Yeah, that's why I'm not CEO of Apple. I could not have done that. David, I think that you are damn lucky that Apple started in 1976, because if it started in 1977, you, in the first 50 years, you would have had to cover this whole issue of tariffs and Trump. But now you
Oh,
can say,
it's in there. It's in the book. Yeah, I was
but
updating
not,
as late as December.
yeah, okay. But December is a long time ago, right?
That's true.
That was before Minneapolis and all that, right?
That is true.
Yeah, so you're lucky.
The trophy incident is in there, but not Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I said, is that, depending on your lens, is either super shrewd or super sycophantic and disgusting.
Yeah. So I got to ask you this because, and I bet you asked Chris Espinosa and other people like this. So, and I don't know the answer, and people ask me this all the time. I wasn't in exactly Steve's BFF, and I wasn't in his inner circle like Chris Espinosa and stuff. But what do you think, if Steve were alive today, how would have this played out with the Trump administration?
Oh, man. Dude, that's an impossible question. I have no idea.
Oh,
I mean,
I want to win an Emmy for, podcasting. So I got to ask you the tough questions, David. I mean, I got $400. I pay for the Emmy, no problem.
I mean, do we even know Jobs' politics?
Well,
was he a
we
Republican?
kind
Was he a
of
Democrat?
we kind of know Lorraine's politics, right? I mean,
Yeah, that's right. We know. I mean, Jobs was he was very pro-education, so in that way he was an empathetic, charismatic person. But he was also virulently against teachers' unions, who said they were destroying education. So who is he? Everybody wants to know about Jobs, right? Because there's so many different. You can read a 600-page book on Steve Jobs and still not feel like you know him, right? And the reason is, first of all, there were multiple Steve Jobs eras, like we talked about. Second of all, there were multiple Steve Jobs personalities. Scully said, no question, the guy was bipolar. He would cry really easily, and he was hilarious. He was like screamingly funny. He could eviscerate you. He could put you on a pedestal. And so I interviewed Andy Hertzfeld, one of the key engineers on the first Macintosh, and he said, any adjective you could use to describe a person, you could describe him with. Like he was all the adjectives, which makes him impossible to pin down.
Yeah. Oh, but as I look back, man, I think what a privilege and honor it was to work for him. I mean, I to use a sports analogy, I bet it's like saying I played for Bobby Knight or Vince Lombardi. I mean, really, I would not be where I am were it not for Steve Jobs. I freely admit that. It was amazing. So,
I mean, you were there at the birth. Have you ever told people on this podcast about the Macintosh unveiling? You had the greatest description when you talked to me. So everybody knew that Apple was about to revolutionize computers by releasing a relatively low-cost machine with a graphic interface, right? Could do fonts and graphics and animations, and everything before that had been text commands, memorized commands. And you told me that you were in the Flint auditorium and...
Wait, I told you this story?
It was amazing. You said it was like a revival meeting.
Okay, the emotional side of this.
The emotional side, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this was like, we're witnessing the birth of Christ. I mean, it's hard to, I get all choked up just thinking about it. It was freaking amazing that we were completely and utterly convinced that we were saving the world, ironically, from a totalitarian government and a totalitarian world. Like, 1984 won't be like 1984. Well, come to find out, 2024 is like 1984. But that's a different discussion. And it was the most moving, amazing thing. I would say it's second only to witnessing the birth of my children. It's truly amazing. Yeah. And anybody who was there who tells you different either wasn't there or was asleep or I don't know, something's wrong with them.
Yeah. I mean, people's tears were streaming down people's faces. It was just, yeah, like you said.
Yeah. And, we who were in the Macintosh division at that time, after that, they took us to the parking lot and there was this big truck and we all got Macintosh 128Ks that said, in the back, it said, in appreciation. And it said to Guy Kawasaki or to Mike Boych or to Andy Hertzfeld or whatever. Did you know that? We all got those.
Yeah, I did. That's in the book. Yeah.
Yeah. Of course,
and
problem.
Do you have yours? Do you still have it? Or did you put that on eBay?
I was just going to say, I don't know where the hell that computer is.
Oh, no.
From 1984 to now, I changed, I moved about 5 times. And I think we were living in Palo Alto just after we got married. And there was this condominium and there was an attic. And I think we put some stuff in that attic. And then we moved out and forgot to empty the attic. So one of these days, I'm going to knock on that door and say, you don't realize, but in that closet, there's an attic. And in that attic, there might be a Macintosh with my name on it. But I'm afraid of getting arrested by doing that. And, like this crazy Asian guy, like wax on, wax off, attic on, attic off. And he came to my house and he said he wanted to get the Macintosh out of my attic. And I had him arrested. And, So that would be a great story.
No, you could be like, knock, knock, knock. Don't you know who I am? They'd let you in.
Yeah. And you know what they'll say? Say, oh, didn't you write Rich Dad, Poor Dad? And I go, oh. So, David, I'm going to let you off the hook now before CBS News fires you. And I am telling you, everybody who uses an Apple product and cares about Apple in an emotional sense, you absolutely should read The War and Peace, The Definitive History of Apple by David Pogue, and only David Pogue. And it's called Apple, The First 50 Years. Thank God it's not the first 51 years. You gotta read this. You just gotta read this book. And David, thank you so much for being on this. And I want you to tell people to buy Madison and I's Signal book. All right.
All right. We'll do a little co-blurbing opportunity here. We'll log roll.
You should start using Signal, David. Okay.
I've heard you're really into Signal, man.
Yes, I am. I'm a Signal evangelist now. So yeah.
Do you think Apple is listening into your iMessages messages?
Well, if they are, all they know is when I'm going surfing. Well, they also know that I love fir trees.
And you're reading this really great book about Apple.
Yeah, written by only David Pogue. Yeah.
But you're not bitter.
David, it's been a pleasure. I know you're about to go on the road to do all the book tour for this book, but you are not going to have an interview that's better than this interview for this book.
Probably not, honestly.
I don't care what Terry Gross tells you.
I mean, the fallacy of all of this is you're very kind to have me on your show, but you are the guy who was there. I'm just reporting on it from the outside.
Yeah, but sometimes, as you very well know, when you're inside the reality distortion field, it's very difficult to understand the distortion you're in. Yeah. All righty. David, I'm going to let you go because I'm sure you need to talk to more important people than me. I got to thank Madison Neisber, co-producer, Jeff C., co-producer, Shannon Hernandez, sound design engineer, Tessa Neismer, researcher. I mean, we're not like CBS News here. We just have a few people behind me, but they are remarkable. They make this podcast so successful. And if you pay me enough, I will not put the outtakes where you could not make your technology work. But anyway.
That was the hardest one podcast in history.
Yeah, what can I say? All righty. David.
Thanks, man.